Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Vega Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well on this Saturday evening. Hope you guys are conquesting. Hope you guys are learning more about yourselves, controlling yourselves better as time goes on. The biggest issue really is mastering yourself, and that's why we talk about this on the channel. Hope you guys are having a nice day. It's raining here in the Midwest a little bit. Watching some NFL football games, preseason games, looking forward to the season. But speaking of that, we talk about addictions, and I used to have addiction to watching NFL football games, along with video games, things like that. We're going to talk about addictions in a second and how to overcome the addiction to women. But let's go do shoutouts real fast here. Let's kind of do it. Witcheshaur 9718, thank you, my friend. On the booster, 176 days, great, thank you. Continue, my friend, keep doing it. Sleepy Sage, 22 days, congratulations, keep going, my friend. And thank you for your comment. Andre Miller, thank you. Relentless Assault, thank you. Harry Mereweather, thank you. Glory be to God, thank you, my friend. Jon the Dawn had a couple, thank you. My Passive, thank you. Giodude, thank you, appreciate it. Cameron Vaughn, thank you. Jimmy Gibson, thank you. JoJo Aces, thank you. Andrew McNeils, thank you, my friend. Don Trump had a couple. I appreciate that, Don. Hardboy, thank you. Chadboy, 6 years. Keep it going, my friend. That's great. That's about, I'm a couple years away from that, but that's about halfway where I want to go. So thank you so much. Congratulations. And that's wonderful. Keep going. You're a good inspiration, my friend. Lykkos, thank you. G4 Ghulam, thank you. Tyrone Man, thank you. Lilith 2754, thank you. Matriculated, 2 of them, thank you. And Foodchaser, thank you. Hidden Gems, thank you. Papa Jordy, thank you. Celtic Warrior, thank you. And Vainakh Quranities, thank you very much. And if I mispronounced it, I apologize. Did not mean to do that. Doing the best we can with the names as we see them. So, all right, guys. So the topic for today at the 2-minute mark, 2 minutes, 10 seconds, is going to be talking about addictions. So a lot of you guys have mentioned this and talked about this in some kind of form. And obviously one of our biggest problems that we deal with in our society when it comes to self-control is overcoming the temptation of an addiction. An addiction can take many forms. We talk about women as one of the forms, but obviously all you gotta do is take a look at things around you and what you've experienced so far in your life. You know, you can be addicted to drugs. You can be addicted to alcohol. You can be addicted to video games, and I was that way. You can be addicted to NFL football games, which I was as well. You could be addicted to overeating, gambling, and of course, you could be addicted to women and sex and pornography, things like that. So let's take a step back, because in order for us to gain mastery of ourselves, we have to come up with some mechanism to overcome or push away the thought, the idea, the behavior of addictions. So first we got to take a step back, warriors, and look at what do we mean by addiction? Well, an addiction is something that you have in your life that you cannot go away from. You have to have it. It fulfills some need in you at that current time in your life, and you feel like you cannot live without it. So if we're talking about gambling, of course, you're going to continue gambling. If you talk about pornography, you're going to continue looking at pornography. Whether it's a dopamine type of reaction or something happening to you physically, you need that to feel like you're fulfilled. And so we're creatures of habit, human beings. And so after 21 days especially, if you like what's happening based on this behavior, then all of a sudden it becomes a habit for you, and it can turn into an addiction. So obviously the key we'll talk about a little bit later is how to stop that habit from forming. That's the key. But going back to the addiction is created by us having a void. Now, what is that void? Well, the void could be with something that we're missing, or could be trying to get away from something that we are in the process of having. So for example, people have affairs a lot of times because they're not happy with their current relationship. They do gambling because they're not happy. They need the high of a dopamine high of the risk of winning or losing. They don't have excitement in their life, so they may get involved in that. A lot of habits addictions start because people are bored. They're bored with the people they're with. They think their life should be more exciting, and so they do a lot of crazy things to create the excitement. And some of those things like drugs and alcohol and other things can be very addictive. And so they become habits, and now the person feels like they cannot live without it. Now I say feel like it because this is not a reality, in my opinion. This is a perception you have that you need this thing. In the case of women, the perception is you need this woman in your life. You cannot live without her. And so when you do that in a relationship, as we've talked about before, you put yourself at a big disadvantage because now you become desperate. And women can sense that a mile away. They may use you. They may take advantage of you. They may put in a situation where you are not acting and making your own decisions because you need this person so much, you're willing to do anything to stay with this person. You become addicted to the person. And addiction is never a good thing. Love is different than addiction. Love is being able to say, I care about you, I love you, but I don't need to have you around all the time. I can still function myself without having you there if I had to. Addiction means I cannot function without you being there. And so the addiction formed because we're missing something. Maybe you feel like your life is not exciting enough, you're bored, and so you're reaching out, you're looking at pictures, you're looking at and getting involved with people, you're eating. And it's a funny thing, all these addictions seem to kind of come together, right? You go to a party to meet people, you also have alcohol there, drugs, all kinds of stuff there, and sometimes gambling as well. And all of a sudden now, the casinos are perfect for this kind of stuff, right? And you have all these things working, and they all can become an addiction. Now, we're all different, and depending on where we're at in our life, we could get addicted to something here, we could get addicted to something else. But for the most part, we are addicted to something because we're missing something, or the other part of this is you're trying to relieve stress of your current day life. Once again, you're bored or you're so stressed out, you're trying to get away. So when you go on vacation, people do a lot of gambling. People end up doing a lot of, overeating. They could do drugs. They could do alcohol. People go out, thank God it's Friday type of thing. Go out on Friday nights and start drinking and having a good time. They feel like this having a good time has to involve drinking and all this other kind of stuff, right? Well, what they're doing is getting away from their Monday through Friday during the day, activity and stress of a job, stress of a family, and now I'm getting away. And so they get away for a while thinking this is going to help their issue. In fact, it doesn't help their issue because they come back to the same old issues, but all they're doing is kind of putting themselves in a position where now they've created a new habit and they're trying to use that habit to try to get away from reality. Instead of dealing with issues, what they're dealing with is looking at the fantasy of a reality. And this is why people have affairs as well, because they can't deal with the current situation with the person they're with, and so now they're looking for other types of things to go back with. And the modern dating situation we have right now, this is what I see all the time. I see people just having multiple people that they interact with all the time because they don't want to deal with one individual and trying to work out a situation and actually have some sort of, really substantial communication with people and a relationship. But the idea of the addiction is something that happens to a lot of men. Men get addicted very easily to women. Now, why is that? Well, let's take a look at this. So, back to this whole idea of women, the fact that seems to be very common here is that when men fall in love, unlike women can fall in love after having intercourse with that man. They get to that point. But men tend to fall in love when they start doing a lot of things for the woman. And so many women, they understand this as well. As it goes through the ages here, they understand that. And so they become the knight in shining armor type of thing. And the men do more and more, and so they're protecting that woman, they're providing for that woman, and they can start that early on, even before they get married. And all of a sudden, now they're providing things. This is why men will pay for things all the time and do things because they're giving to the woman, hoping the woman recognizes this, goes back to that Disney model, and they recognize this, and they will eventually go ahead and say, okay, I'll be with you because you give me more than anybody else does. But again, this becomes an addiction because most males then, this may be the only person that they're doing this for. Now, guys out there who play the field and do all kinds of stuff have lots of different types of women they do things for, if they do them at all, which a lot of times they may not do them at all. And so what ends up happening is that they don't have the same sort of bond or connection. And so their chances of getting addicted to something become a lot less because they just don't have that. They have more of a detachment, which is one of the ways that we can talk about getting away from addictions. But when you're addicted, you get deeper and deeper in a situation. And one of the biggest ways that happens is obviously the contact. Once you're with the woman and you're having intercourse with the woman, well, then you want to see the woman again and again, and relationships get to this intimacy level where all of a sudden it starts exploding. This is why the old-fashioned way is still the best, and I used it a long time ago, right? I'll be fully admit that I didn't have any kind of intercourse until actually I was married. And so basically I did not believe in that until I was married. And so it's an old-fashioned idea, but there's reasons why it was an old-fashioned idea. And a lot of that was because what you're talking about is looking at trying to not get addicted to the physical intimacy relationship. Because once you're addicted to the physical intimacy, then you don't look at that person as a person, you tend to look at them more as an object of pleasure. And so that can quickly change, and then what do you have left over? So, for instance, I dated people for a long time in the past, engaged for a long time before getting married, and getting to know people and not focusing on the physical and trying to understand, is this person right for you? So even though I'm totally old-fashioned and I'm 63 years old, I don't believe in sleeping around, and I never did. And basically, it doesn't serve any purpose except to lose energy. And if you're sitting there doing this, it's very easy to get addicted. So the first thing I would recommend when we talk about overcoming addiction is don't be sleeping with women. Now, nowadays with the MGTOW movement and things that we talk about, a lot of men are avoiding women, period. And that's obviously a good and bad thing depending on your own situation. But sleeping with a woman all of a sudden starts raising the intimacy level, and all of a sudden now you're forgetting about the whole aspect of that person, and now you're thinking about the physical. The physical can die down. It's just a matter of time. Looks go, things go. The physical doesn't last forever. But can you establish a relationship once that's gone? That's not easy for many people to do. And this is why you see a lot of modern dating where people go from one person to another, and they have large body counts and things like that because they're addicted to the process of having sex. They're addicted to all that. Same thing happens with the pornography as well. They get addicted to it, and they like the dopamine level. So now you have to find more people, more situations, more diva behaviors, multiple partners. All this other kind of stuff happens because you become saturated between the idea of having intercourse with a person and now not being totally satisfied with that. Now I want more, and I want a higher dopamine level. And so just same thing with pornography. Look at it one time, now I gotta get something more graphic or more violent or whatever it might be. And so we get into these patterns of thinking and behavior because, again, you're not being satisfied. One time is great, but once you start doing 2-3 times, even the same person, you may feel like it's not something that's going to be, it's time to move on, right? That's what happens with a lot of people, especially now in the modern day. And so I understand that, and I see that. But this is why there's a danger, as I had before, getting involved, getting addicted to women. And so the bottom line is what you got to do is you got to try not to say, okay, first of all, I'm not gonna get into any kind of physical intimacy for a while in this relationship. That takes a lot of self-control, but that's something you can do. Now, the other thing you can do is start thinking about them in terms of looking at them, as we said, as I've said before, as your mother, as your sister, as your daughter, whatever it might be. So you're sitting there looking at women in a different way. You're not looking at them as sex objects. You're not lusting after them. And in relationships, as you get to know people, you're focusing on them as a person. You're not focusing on them as an object. And so because of that, then, you're not going to get that tempted to have a relationship with that person. This is why it's so crucial that you control your side of things. And you're not going to be able to control the other person. The woman may be infatuated with you. The woman may like you a lot. But you're the one that has control of yourself. And this is a key thing when it comes to addiction. Now remember, 21 days as well is usually the guidepost of addictions and habits. And so as you look at this idea, you don't want to get caught up, especially with the physical or the pictures and things like that, for long periods of time. You want to be able to stop that. So what do you do ahead? So for example, we talked about the fact you don't get intimate with somebody right away. You wait. Now my rule used to be in the past, I wouldn't kiss anybody until like the third or fourth date even. And so you find out who is a person who's really serious about this and who just wants to fool around. And a lot of people in their 20s, back when I was in their 20s, it wasn't as bad, but now you see a lot of people just wanting to fool around in their 20s. And really, especially for young men, this is kind of a waste of time. Once you start establishing yourself, this is why I always say get involved in your goals, get your career started, do those things in the 20s. Don't worry about the women. Women, they have their chances when they're in the 20s. I think a lot of women have been, ruined by this whole feminist movement. And so basically what they're doing is they've had their fun. They want to be the boss woman and all that kind of stuff like this. And they realize when they hit the wall of 30 that there's nobody interested in them anymore. And they become more masculine, and they're not really somebody that men really want. And now, now they're lonely, or now they're at the point where they don't feel that they're going to find anybody. And now men, on the other hand, and because men have waited, and men sit and work on themselves and work on their own goals, and they work on their own betterment and getting them better themselves, all of a sudden now have a lot more options as they get older. And you see this all the time. They're making more money, they're more successful, women are more interested because they provide a lot more safety and protection and provision as they get older. And so they become more attractive because of those aspects. And they also become a lot more confident along the way, and women find that very appealing. Women have this window where, and especially men, if they want to have children, they're going to find women who can have children. This is just the reality of the situation. And I know a lot of women get upset with this, but this is the reality of the situation. Especially if you want to have children, women in their 20s are most is what the men tend to look at, especially as they get older, right? And so women then, have to make a decision at some point. What are they going to do to rectify this? Are they going to continue being lonely and their whole life? Well, they may choose to do that, right? They may keep the same attitudes they have and think those are correct, and they may do that as well. But getting back to the addiction part, we need to kind of think to ourselves, okay, we need not to create this level of intimacy. If men are not intimate with women, they're showing women the right way to behave in a relationship, and that woman will, if she really wants that guy, will go ahead and kind of do that. And this is important. I think women need to be submissive when it comes eventually, but this is not the society we're living in right now. Women are realizing this, and some are changing, and I've seen that several times recently, where women are taking the attitude of thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to really get together with a relationship and get with somebody, I need to change some of my attitudes, and I applaud that. I think that's a good recognition of all the things they've learned when they were younger. Is this matrix? Is not how men and women operate. And women are, women think men are bad creatures. Men are not bad creatures at all. And they've been told that for particular reasons, and we can go into that in another session. But the idea is that men have a lot of function just like women do. Women are wonderful, but so are men. And so the thing is that as men focus on themselves, they're focusing not on lust, they're not focusing on, who I can sleep with tonight, things like that. As I said, my list is very small, of people. But that's one of the reasons why I was able to keep a lot of my energy, even though, I had problems myself when it came to pictures and things like that. I kept a lot of my energy because I just didn't feel like that was something I wanted to do. I grew up as a Catholic, and I felt like it was important to have celibacy in a long period of time. So I did that. So I can relate to that. So, but on the other hand, I can also relate to the person who, because of that, had problems with images and all kinds of releasing energy the other way. And so that's why you have to be careful of not going down that path of lust. And part of that then is overcoming the addiction. The fact that you're giving the women, you have to be very careful about what you're giving, especially if you're not married to the person. If you're married to the person, you have a little different type of situation. But again, even that, if you start giving all the time to somebody, even though men are basically givers in many ways, you cannot be given all the time. Women will not respect that. You have to say no once in a while. You have to kind of put your foot down. And especially, you can't be buying meals and things for women, expecting something back in return. And so I would just say the best thing to do is, if you want to have some dinners, relationships, we can work those things out. If you want to pay, that's going to be up to you. You can always, have her pay. I think the key thing is that you don't become someone who's focusing on that person in a lustful way. If you get away from that, you can focus on that person having a nice time, developing a nice friendship, relationship. If it goes stronger than that, one day that's great, but you're not in a lustful mood. If you get away from the lustful mood, your chances of getting addiction become less. So looking at them as a sister, as a mother, as a daughter, whatever you might want to look at, whatever your situation is. Look at that person by saying, okay, this is not a person that I'm lusting after. They may be an attractive person, but I'm not lusting after them. So because of that, then I can focus on this person, get to know them, see if it's something that's an interesting person to me. Maybe I can share more time with them. Do we share goals? All those things. And that will keep you away from a lot of addictions. Now, obviously, the same thing applies to any addiction, right? You've got to find things to do when you're starting to think about that addiction. It's alcohol, watching pictures, things like that. Find other things to do. Start working out more. Start, exercising, as we said, more. Start, reading more. Start working on yourself more. Whatever it might have to be. Work on yourself. Achieve some goals. Put some goals together. And get away from things when you start thinking about those. If you have an addiction to something right now, whenever you start thinking about that thing you want to do, whether it's going to go out and gamble, whether it's going to go out and watch pictures, or go spend time with a woman that you're addicted to, find something else to do. It will make a huge difference for you to step away for a few minutes, a few days, and just rethink about this a little bit. And then you can go back and say, okay, is this something I really want? Because the addiction continues because you don't stop. You're not stopping. You're continuing with the behavior. You're continuing drinking. You're continuing to do drugs, whatever it might be, or chasing women. If you stop it for a few days and you're able to stop it without becoming too addicted, then you can see past it in the reality of the situation. So, well, guys, hope I helped you on this one. This one is a complex one in many regards, because addiction is something that we fall into as human beings a lot without even knowing it. And women especially are things that we can get addicted to very easily. But the key thing is, don't get intimate with women, in my opinion, until you've kind of got to know them more. So this becomes not an addiction for lust, that you really want to become a friend, and then maybe that will grow into something else down the line. But the thing is that it's hard to control yourself, but that's what you're going to have to do. Control yourself to the point where lust is not a key factor, and you won't be addicted to women. That's not easy, and I realize it's difficult, but as you do it more and more and practice it, you build a good habit of not being addicted to things and thinking, again, where your mind should be, and that's with your Creator and God. And that's really the biggest way, by the way, to overcome the addiction. Spend time in the Word, spend time in religion, spend time in your talk with your Creator, and focus on those things that get your mind off of that addiction. Temptation, addiction, very similar. One starts the process, the other one continues the process. It's the same type of thing. All right, my friends, a great time. I hope you guys have a nice Saturday evening, the rest of the evening. I hope it goes well for you guys. Until then, 2 things we always leave you with. 1, every day is a new day to a great warrior. And number 2, guys, remember always to battle on! Have a great evening. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.